Okay, so we need to hand this project over to someone else, but in order to do that, especially if they're using other software, we need to be able to export either a reference file or what we call a baked master if we're sending this out to somebody grading in a different bit of software. So we're going to take a look at the Deliver panel in this lecture. This is where we export our project, our final project, but we also can use it to export intermediary files that still have some practical use in our workflow. To open up the Deliver panel, in the lower right there's a little rocket ship icon down here. Just give it a click, and here we see the Deliver panel. So let's go over what we're looking at. In the center we have our viewer showing us what is under the playhead, simple enough. We have a thumbnail list here, and this is every single video shot in our edit, and it's showing us the first frame of each one. We can navigate our edit by clicking on the thumbnail, and it will jump the playhead forward to the start of that particular clip. Below that again, we have a timeline. We cannot make any changes on the timeline in the Deliver panel, only in the Edit or Cut panels, okay? So we can't make any tweaks here. So that's the middle three. On the left, we have all of our export settings, and on the right, we have our render queue. So let's set this job up to render. I want to export what we call an offline reference file, and that is something that we send along to either the grade or the sound mix, and it provides a visual reference for when either the audio mixer is working, or it allows the colorist to make sure that when they reconstruct the edit on their end, it is in fact correct. So the offline reference file is extremely important, and we're going to do an offline reference. Then we will do what we call a baked master, which is very similar but with a higher quality codec. So up here I need to set my export settings. I'm going to click the video tab, and up here at the top I have two options. I have single clip and individual clips. I want single clip to be selected here. That's going to export the whole thing as a single file. Individual clips is for a reconform at the end of what we call the online-offline round trip, and we're going to cover that in a later project. So for now, I want single clip. I'm going to give this a name, and it's going to be Jim Candy underscore offline in block capitals. And that's going to let any other users know that this is an offline reference file. That is a very standard naming convention for this kind of file. So down here, I then want to choose my format, which is my container. We have things like DPX, JPEG 2000, and MP4. I'm going to stick with QuickTime. And then we have our codec, and as we've only covered either ProRes, DNX, or H.264, an offline reference file is very commonly H.264. The other people, they don't actually work on that file. The file only exists to give them some kind of a reference as to the edit that they should be working on. They continue to work with these raw files or with these audio files. Yeah, they don't actually work with the file that we are currently making. So I'm going to choose codec H.264. I have an NVIDIA card, so I've got a very quick way to encode H.264. And then resolution, I'm going to leave it at 1080. I'm going to leave my frame rate at 25. Down here we have quality, and we can leave it at best. That will make a big file. If I'm sending this online through WeTransfer and the like, I want to make a smaller file. Again, they're never going to actually work directly with this file. It's only a visual reference. So I'm going to hit restrict to, and I'm going to type in 15,000 down here, and that's roughly constricts it to, or restricts it to, about 15 megabits per second. There will be a lecture on bitrate and data rate later on, so don't worry too much about this now. Basically, a bigger number makes a bigger file but is higher quality. A lower number, a smaller file but is lower quality. That's all. And because this is only a reference, it does not need to be high quality. It just needs to be easy to send. Everything else I'm going to leave alone. For now, that's enough. So the last thing I want to do is hit this browse button because I want to choose where I am exporting this to. So I'm going to go into my D and then deliverables and then resolve editing Udemy course. And these are all the things that I've recorded, but I'm just going to export my file here for now, just for demonstration purposes. I'll then hit save. Now, this hasn't rendered out the project. It's not started anything rendering out just yet. I'm going to hit the Add to Render Queue button. And when I do that, all of this is saved and put into a job item up here on the right-hand side. And this is my render queue. The render queue basically lists all the jobs down here that have not yet been rendered and allows me to choose one, any, or all of them to render out as I see fit. I need to click on a job so that it is highlighted in white and therefore active. This is the one place where the highlight isn't orange in Resolve, which is frustrating. And then I need to hit Start Render, and then Resolve will take a few minutes to render out the project. These jobs have not been rendered until we select them and hit this button. Okay, you haven't exported anything until you have done this. So I'm going to hit Start Render and then come back when it's done. Now I have a beast of a machine, so it's not going to take long to export this project. In fact, I might not even cut through this just so I can boast about how good my workstation is. Look at that go. And there we have a whole film rendered out in 18 seconds. You can hear it just beginning to spin up after it's finished. So that's now exported our offline reference file, and we can send that along to our colorist and to our sound designer or mixer alongside either of the XML or AAF files we're going to make in the next 2 lectures. So this has been a good overview of the Deliver panel. And next we will look at what we call a baked master file, and after that we will look at the XML and AAF files, which are instrumental in handover to different software. So go ahead and click on through to the next lecture once you're ready.